Hare Krishna.
So here we are, reading again. Feels like 10,000 years or more.
We read in Brighton.
That's right, yeah. So it's
by
been
the sea.
read in Brighton by the sea.
That was on Monday.
Yeah.
And today's Saturday.
Yeah, so been a busy week. Okay, so where are we reading?
Canto 3, chapter 22, verse 20. Is that right?
26, 27.
Oh, because I didn't have my book in Brighton. So I read with you. Oh, hold on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay. Verse 26 and 27.
After asking.
After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, followed by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seers, beautiful hermitages on both the charming banks of the Saraswati, the river so agreeable to saintly persons. Purport. As cities are constructed in the modern age with great engineering and architectural craftsmanship, so in days gone by there were neighbourhoods called Rishikulas, where great saintly persons resided. In India there are still many magnificent places for spiritual understanding. There are many rishis and saintly persons living in nice cottages on the banks of the Ganges and Yamuna for purposes of spiritual cultivation. While passing through the Rishikulas, the king and his party were very much satisfied with the beauty of the cottages and hermitages. It is stated here, Pasyan Ashram Sampada. The great sages had no skyscrapers, but the hermitages were so beautiful that the king was very much pleased at the sight.
Interesting. So they weren't big buildings, but they were just simple hermitages. And I like this term, Rishikulas.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's a
Rishikulas.
kula. That's cool, kula. Like Gurukula. The Gurukula, the
Home of the guru.
home of the guru, yeah. But I always thought kula meant school, but must not be kula. Does it say in the Rishi Kuyaya, agreeable to the sages? I have to look it up. So, but I was also reminded, recently I was speaking with someone and they were sharing how, in the process of simple living, like, if you build a simple house made of bricks and mud, things that are around a simple straw hut kind of thing, and you live in it, then, you live in it. And if some natural disaster comes along, some terrible storm, some fire, some tornado, whatever, and kind of wipes everything out, some flood, well, after it subsides, you just collect the same materials again and rebuild it. And I was like, wow, that's so true. It's so simple. Whereas now in the modern day, if some natural disaster comes or something happens, God, it costs so much money to rebuild. And then it reminded me that someone also had said to me recently in a conversation that actually the homes of today were not built for humans. They were built for the banks. So the banks, evidently, is a historical thing, if you know about these things, that the first kind of model homes were built by the banks to sell to people under the premise that they would then kind of be indebted to the bank and give the bank money for the home. And then in that way, these nice features in homes were created as a source of income rather than really a source of, I guess, luxury. In one sense, we say, yeah, we now take them for granted. But that's just like in India, there was a whole marketing campaign to sell dryers, with clothes dryers. And in India, really, you don't really need a clothes dryer, for the most part. But it became a whole thing to market clothes dryers. It's like, say selling sand to someone who lives on a beach, It's like certain things like that. So, anyway, keeping it simple, I think, is the kind of point here.
Yes.
Except when I speak, I don't always keep it simple. But at least I try to speak from the heart.
Right. Okay.
Text 28. Overjoyed to know of his arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet their returning Lord with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. So this is Swayambhuva Manu going back to Brahmavarta. It is the custom of the citizens of a kingdom's capital to receive the king when he returns from tour. There is a similar description when Krishna returned to Dwarka after the battle of Kurukshetra. At that time, he was received by all classes of citizens at the gate of the city. Formerly, capital cities were surrounded by walls, and there were different gates for regular entrance. Even in Hare Krishna. So we just had some technical difficulties, and we're picking up where we left off. Text 28.
Is it 28?
Yeah.
Where?
I think I was reading. Text 28.
Okay.
Overjoyed to know of his arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet their returning Lord with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. Purport. It is the custom of the citizens of a kingdom's capital to receive the king when he returns from a tour. There is a similar description when Krishna returned to Dwarka after the battle of Kurukshetra. At that time, he was received by all classes of citizens at the gate of the city. Formerly, capital cities were surrounded by walls, and there were different gates for regular entrance. Even in Delhi, and that's where it cut off. Today, there are old gates, and some other old cities have such gates, where citizens would gather to receive the king. Here also the citizens of Barhishmati, the capital of Brahmavarta, the kingdom of Swayambhuva, came nicely dressed to receive the emperor with decorations and musical instruments. Yay!
Text 29 to 30. The city of Barhishmati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Bull. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha grass and kasha, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifices. Purport. Any place directly connected with the Supreme Lord is called Pitastana. Barhismati, the capital of Swayambhuva Manu, was exalted not because the city was very rich in wealth and opulence, but because the hairs of Lord Varaha fell at this very spot. These hairs of the Lord later grew as green grass, and the sages used to worship the Lord with that grass after the time when the Lord killed the demon Hiranyaksha. Yagya means Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, karma is described as Yagyanat. Yagyanat karma means work done only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. If something is done for sense gratification or any other purpose, it will be binding upon the worker. If one wants to be freed from the reaction of his work, he must perform everything for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Yagya. In the capital of Swayambhuva Manu, Barhismati, these particular functions were being performed by the great sages and saintly persons.
Any thoughts?
That's an interesting fact about Lord Varaha's hair being the kusha grass. Interesting historical fact.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the part where it got cut off, I went into explaining about how the kusha grass is used in different ways in Vedic ceremonies and yajnas. It's always used to offer into the ghee and purify the ghee. It's also used when they welcome the deities. They'll use it to touch the eyes, touch the ears, touch the mouth. And this is meant to then welcome and bring the Lord into that deity. Yeah, we also do different things with it. Make pinjalis, where you wrap one kusha grass around 3 stalks the same length. It's called the pinjali. Anyway, lots of different things about kusha grass used, and yeah, it's interesting that it's the hairs of Lord Varahadev, who is a boar. So they're also quite prickly. And Lord Balaram also used a piece of kusha grass to kill Sutta Goswami, Romaharsha and Sutta. Yeah, the father of Sutta Goswami. So it can be quite sharp, actually.
Okay.
Text 31. Kusha.
No. What?
Yeah, I was reading the verse. Manu spread a seat of kushas and kashas and worshipped the Lord, the personality of Godhead, by whose grace he had obtained the rule of the terrestrial globe. Purport. Manu is the father of mankind, and therefore from Manu comes the word man, or in Sanskrit, manusya. Those who are in a better position in the world, having sufficient wealth, should especially take lessons from Manu, who acknowledged his kingdom and opulence to be gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus always engaged in devotional service. Similarly, the descendants of Manu, or human beings, especially those who are situated in a well-to-do condition, must consider that whatever riches they have are gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those riches should be utilized for the service of the Lord and sacrifices performed to please Him. So basically, whatever wealth we have, we should engage it in the service of the Lord. In the bygone ages, they would engage it, spend it to buy the paraphernalia and the items to perform yajna. We can still do that by purchasing things to be engaged in the service of the deities, which is also yajna, or to support the Sankirtan mission, distributing books, distributing prasadam, distributing the holy name, like that. That is the way of utilizing wealth and opulence. No one can achieve the wealth, opulence, good birth, a beautiful body, or nice education without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, those who are in possession of such valuable facilities must acknowledge their gratefulness to the Lord by worshiping Him and offering what they have received from Him. When such acknowledgement is given, either by a family, nation, or society, their abode becomes almost like Vaikuntha, and it becomes free from the operation of the threefold miseries of this material world. In the modern age, the mission of Krishna consciousness is for everyone to acknowledge the supremacy of Lord Krishna. Whatever one has in his possession must be considered a gift by the grace of the Lord. Therefore, everyone should engage in devotional service through Krishna consciousness. If one wants to be happy and peaceful in his position, either as a householder or citizen or member of human society, one must promote devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord. Wow. Yeah, especially like the last sort of paragraph, a couple of sentences, that we should consider whatever we have as a gift from the Lord and engage in devotional service. This is the only way for us to be happy and peaceful, regardless of which ashram you're situated in. one has to promote devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord. Very nice. Any other thoughts?
Now, text 32. Having entered the city of Barhishmati, in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence. Purport. The material world, or material existential life, is filled with threefold miseries. Miseries pertaining to the body and mind, miseries pertaining to natural disturbances, and miseries inflicted by other living entities. Human society is meant to create a spiritual atmosphere by spreading the spirit of Krishna consciousness. The miseries of material existence cannot affect the status of Krishna consciousness. It is not that the miseries of the material world completely vanish when one takes to Krishna consciousness, but for one who is Krishna conscious, the miseries of material existence have no effect. We cannot stop the miseries of the material atmosphere, but Krishna consciousness is the antiseptic method to protect us from being affected by the miseries of material existence. For a Krishna conscious person, both living in heaven and living in hell are equal. How Swayambhuva Manu created an atmosphere wherein he was not affected by material miseries is explained in the following verses.
Sounds exciting. I'm sure all of us are interested to hear how Swayambhuva Manu created an atmosphere wherein he is not affected by the material miseries. So, but it's also important to understand that actually, even if we do become a pure devotee, then the material miseries don't disappear from the world. It's just we're not affected by the material miseries. It still goes on, but we're just not so disturbed or elated by them.
Yeah, it's like that. Let's say you're on a bus going to work or train. If you're so engrossed in what's going on your phone, or then, for example, you don't notice there's a kid constantly kicking the back of your seat, or there's a man whose earphones are on too high and you can hear the sort of music, someone over there being a bit silly. But when we're not tuned in to something that distracts us, then we get affected by that which is around us. So in the same way, like when we're strong in the sadhana or engrossed in this process, then the natural miseries of this material world, they're there, but they don't knock you off course so much as someone else who's like overwhelmed and like, I can't get out the front door, I can't wake up in the morning, I can't do anything. Otherwise you think, what's up, what's wrong, man, just get on with it. Because I think one thing that creates also a sense of relief or freedom is just accepting Krishna himself says this place is a place of misery, so it's temporary and it's miserable, so that's just how it is. It's like, get on with it then, if that makes sense. It's like trying to patchwork up something that isn't gonna get, you can't go to Iceland and say, why is there so much ice everywhere, I want Bahamas. We ain't gonna get Bahamas here, so build a snowman.
There you have it. Practical philosophy in action. Krishna consciousness in action. Build a snowman. Offer him to Krishna before he melts. Only if you're in Iceland. If you're in the Bahamas, then you can't do that. You can build a sandcastle.
And you can't say when you're there, why can't it be like cold winds? I don't like the heat in the Bahamas. No, but that's the constitutional nature of it. So either you get with it and get on with it, or get out.
There you go. So get on with it, mate. Get out. All right. Thank you very much. So this concludes. We're sorry it was a little two different sections there, but I struck out once again. So that's 2 strikes, as my wonderful wife has informed me. 3 strikes and you're out. So I thought it was charged, but it wasn't. So the battery died right in the middle, and we got no sound. So we had to re-record. But it's always good to go over these verses again. Krishna must have had a plan for us. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Go Premanandi.
Haribol.